I'm giving away this WWE World Championship belt once I hit 100,000 subscribers, so go ahead and click subscribe today. Welcome back to the Angle Show. I, of course, am Angle. We got a big one loaded up for you guys today. I want to talk to you a little bit about WWE's creative process. There's been a lot of talk about this as of late. Obviously, we talked a little bit about this before with Triple H taking over creative. Dave Meltzer basically highlighted the creative process. And this sounds very, very much in line with some of the things that I've heard. I've talked to other people who kind of reflect the same sentiment. And I really want to talk about this because it shows you that Endeavor has like a really big plan here. Meltzer says regarding the creative process, right now Paul Levesque is the person in charge. He is the one making all of the key decisions. Bruce Pritchard is a conduit between creative, talent relations, and talent services. Ed Koskey is the operations manager who keeps the scripts flowing. And at the moment, Vince McMahon is out of the creative process. But it was stressed to Dave Meltzer. The term was used at this moment. McMahon is still obviously the person in charge of the company with the most power. Levesque is running creative. Nick Khan is making the business moves. And a lot of what I've heard is that Nick Khan is kind of like the guy that runs WWE. Obviously, Vince is above Nick Khan. We know that Ari Emanuel is above Vince McMahon. Right now, it appears that Endeavor is pretty happy with the work that Nick Khan and Triple H have done. So, therefore, the only way, it appears to me, the only way that Vince McMahon would actually have to really get involved from the WWE perspective of things is with WWE starting to tank maybe Ari Emanuel, Endeavor, TKO, like the entire group, the entire board, start coming to decisions where things would have to change. But at this time, WWE has been absolutely killing it. They've been doing great things. Hence the reason why we made the video the other day with Triple H becoming the guy for creative. I like the fact that WWE has multiple people involved in everything because right now there's a lot of talk about WWE morale being very high. I'm assuming that has a lot to do with organization. I'm going to assume a big part of that is also Paul Levesque being the guy that everybody is talking to. Paul Levesque is the one that's involved with the process, and Paul Levesque is the one writing the shows. I also think, for WWE going into this merger, I think we are past the part where everything is scary. Now things are starting to become a little bit easier for people to get acclimated to. Now Vince McMahon puts his hands all over the product and starts making crazy business decisions and everything like that, and people start getting taken off TV like DIY or Tegan Knox or whatever it may be, then clearly you're going to see a huge shift in the culture. So with that being said, I think WWE's kind of got it figured out right now. But if they start to tank or the product starts to do bad creatively, I think we will see a lot change. You got to remember, whether you want to admit this or not, Vince McMahon has a boss now. Vince McMahon doesn't own the WWE, okay? He is the chairman, but he has a boss, and his boss can make any changes he wants at any point in time because he trumps Paul Levesque, Vince McMahon, Nick Khan, Bruce Pritchard. He trumps everybody. So at the end of the day, if Ari Emanuel is not liking the direction that it's headed, he can always make those changes. Tony Khan has been talking a lot on Twitter these last few days, obviously not handling the news well that WWE beat him in the ratings for Tuesday. And it's gotten to the point where Tony Khan has become very outspoken about WWE. And one thing that he spoke about in particular was contract tampering. And I want to read you guys this tweet because I think it's definitely an eye-opener, and it's definitely interesting. But he says, "This weekend marks 1 year since Mayo Clinic saved my mom's life. During her ordeal, many AEW talent came to me alleging WWE tampering, inducing them to break their contracts. I'll never forget these phone calls at her side in the hospital. It's when business became personal for me. This is nothing new. I mentioned it last year after she came home. It's relevant today because she checked in for surgery 1 year ago today. As I've mentioned several times since, Mayo Clinic are heroes, and thanks to them, her recovery from a very grim outlook has been a miracle. Not that I should be surprised, but the same WWE avatar accounts that spam me every day, no matter what I say or what it's about, now turning their wrath to mom recovering from a near-death experience, is why I straight up hate these people to the bottom of my heart with all of my soul." look, Tony Khan and his mom, first of all, I hope everything is going well with your mother, because life is more important than this wrestling shit. I don't care about any of that. Like, that doesn't take precedence over human life, right? So hopefully Tony Khan's mother is doing well. I really do genuinely mean that. I have no problem with Tony Khan being outspoken on Twitter. I have no problem with Tony Khan being upset with WWE. I have no problem with Tony Khan putting out the John Cena and Undertaker tweet. I have no problem with Tony Khan doing any of this stuff, because Tony Khan is in business and he is challenging WWE and he is trying to compete with WWE. I have no problem with that. For some reason, a lot of people hate it. I don't hate it. I don't. But what I will say is that when you do these types of tweets where you are attacking your competitor, and it's become personal and it's become this wrestling war, the reality is you have to expect the other business you're competing with not to play nice. Forget about contract tampering for a second, because that's not something I can't even really talk about contract tampering, because I don't know. Obviously, I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't hear the calls. That's what Tony Khan alleges WWE did. But at the end of the day, WWE pulling out all the stops, John Cena, Undertaker, all this stuff, that's what competition is. You poke the bear is ready and hungry and ready to bite, and that's kind of what happened with WWE versus AEW. I find it to be entertaining that both companies are competing with each other. Me personally, that's how I see it. Growing up, I was a WCW fan. Obviously, WCW became extinct, then WWE became the thing. But I grew up being the WCW fan. I wasn't always a WWE fan. I grew up being an Impact fan. Didn't necessarily like WWE over Impact. I know, it's crazy. But now it's gotten to the point where we got two really good companies. They are going to compete. They are going to say and do a lot of things, because that's the nature of business. The more you're outspoken, the more that you're ranting about them, the more that you're fueling them up to really put their best foot forward to win this wrestling war. I don't think a wrestling war exists, but that's what the streets are saying. What I think really does exist, though, is two really good wrestling companies coming out, putting out a good product. One company, I feel, does it better. Some people get offended when I say that, but that's just the reality. AEW is bringing in Mystico. You might remember him as Sin Cara in WWE. He was the original Sin Cara before it was turned over to Hunico. Basically, AEW is bringing him in for next week Rampage against Rocky Romero. The cool thing here is that AEW can do this because they play nice with other companies. CMLL, you'll see them work with CMLL, AAA, NJPW, Pro Wrestling Noah. I mean, you'll see them play nice with other companies. And it's cool that they could do stuff like this. Sin Cara used to be in WWE. Now he's going to be in AEW for a one-off. My counter to that, though, because as much as I like it, there's one counter to it that I have to mention, because that's the fair thing to do. You have people not being used in the back. You bring Mystico in for a one-off, it's not very often you see Mystico again. So you bring in Rocky Romero, who's not a signed AEW talent. You're bringing these people in, but you have people not being used. There's got to be a balance. There's got to be a balance. Unless you just don't want to use them and you want to let their contracts go and expire, then that's a whole different story. But when you have somebody signed to your company and we don't see them being used, that's the counter argument. But Sin Cara, very, very, very big legend and luchador and lucha, right? So luchador is coming into AEW. I like it. They brought in Commander. They brought in Bandito. They brought in so many people at this point that it's become very exciting. Probably will be a fun match. That's not a problem, but obviously, just keep in mind, there's a lot of people not being used. And to also counter that point, too, it's happening on Rampage, so it's not that big of a deal. Rampage is not a big focal point anymore. But just keep that in mind. Let me know what you guys think down below. Thanks for watching.